Hello, this is MacPotty. This will be the start of my Towns tutorial. Towns is a game in the style of kind of like Dungeon Keeper, or what was it, Dwarf Fortress, but I never actually played that, but it's been compared to that. You don't directly control the villagers that you get here. You give them orders and they carry it out. You generate food, you explore, kill monsters. It's a nice little game, I'm enjoying it. And as such, I'm going to start a tutorial so I can fully explain everything that happens. Right, so we've got the overview here. Animals, you can see all the items, trees, grass. Your villagers are here. Right clicking and left clicking are the controls, as well as AWSD for map movement. You've got your construction, more construction and commands. Yeah, there's a lot to go through, so we'll just start easy. So we've got the speed controls here. Generally you want to keep it at 3. It's a bit fast for new players, but in which case you can put it down to 1, so you can fully control what you're doing, but people who know how to play will put it at 3 to speed things up. You can cycle through citizens with this, and cycle through soldiers with these, and you can see how many you've got. So you've got 11 and 0 soldiers. You can activate a grid, but you might want to keep that off. Settings, just saving. Priorities panel, you're going to want to keep an eye on. This is what they'll prioritize in terms of actions. So at top is baking and cooking, and at the bottom is hall. So you see all these, it's the order, they'll pretty much do the actions and the commands that you've given them. You can move them up and down with the green and red arrows. So you can put hall all the way to the top, which will move the others back by 1, so now cooking and baking is 2. It's up to you what you want them to prioritize, but you're definitely going to need food because your people can starve, so having those at top is best. Next we will go through this. These are the automatic, well, I would call it automatic crafting and gathering. You're gonna need this. So, say for instance you've got a wheat field and you want them to harvest it themselves. So you would go into gathering, trees and plants, and you've got it here. So this will just be wheat that you plant and plants that you plant, animals, etc. So on the left side is one time collection, so they collect 4 wheat and then they'll stop. On the right side is continuous, so if we put that to 10, this will keep increasing it until you've got, like that, until you've got 10 wheat stored. And yeah, you can remove them. You're going to want to fiddle around with this, because priorities will change and you'll need to alter them. You can do it for wood, pretty much anything right now. Item creation, military creation, item creation, even vanity, but yeah. After that, we shall go into the commands. We've got harvest. Harvest is used for fruit-bearing trees, flowers, yeah, anything that you can harvest. So you can harvest wheat, and you can harvest apple trees, and you can harvest flowers. Well, you pick flowers, but works as harvest. Chop is obviously just for trees. You've got cut. I've never actually used this, but it will cut down these little bushes, and I think it will get rid of them for good. Let's just double check that, shall we? There she goes to chop it down. Yeah, so there we go. You can cut down those bushes. Dig, you will dig down into the lower level. We'll go through that later. But, oh, there's only not much stone. Well, we'll dig up here. And the guy will go off to dig it. Oh, the woman. Right, there we go. So, we put a ladder in there and we can go down to the second level. We don't have a ladder yet, so we'll do that later. You can till the ground for fields. You can mine which can't be done on the surface, as you can see. You need to do it on the second level here. So this is all stone. We can mine this stone like so. That stone will be mined once we can get down there with a ladder. We've got stockpiles. These set up zones where you can store supplies. It's probably not best to use them because they use up a lot of space. And they can only store one item per square. So you might want to leave them. You can stockpile pretty much everything here. Finally, zones. These are actual buildings that you'll need. For instance, if you want to make a ladder, you need a carpentry. That will set up a carpentry zone. And now you need to actually put carpentry items inside that zone to use them. And we do that on the right here. It's a bit confusing at first, but you get the hang of it. So, as we can see here, well, let's start with the carpentry items. The carpentry items are located under utilities. Now, these are all the utilities that you can use. If you hover over one, you can see here it says carpenter's bench. That's what you need. That's the utility you need to build it. And the resources at the bottom, wood. And if we take another example, the next one here, we can build carpentry, carpenter's bench even, and that requires wood. That's 2 bits of wood, and it's used in the yellow at the bottom there in the carpentry. And just one more example, the stove here. To make the stove, we need a smelter and anvil, and the materials we need are 2 iron, and the stove is used in the kitchen. And that's the same for all of these, the ordering. So next, we've got wall construction. There's different types of walls. Basically, you'll go through this by yourself. I'll just show you the very basics on how to play it. So we want to start by getting some trees, because we'll need the wood. After that, we'll harvest a little bit of this wheat that's dotted around. This is just a tutorial map, because there's no monsters, so we won't have to deal with them. Maybe in a different episode we'll do a real map, and I can show you how to deal with the monsters, but it's relatively easy. So we just harvest a bit of wheat that's around. You'll see why in a minute. We've got some trees here. So the red ones are apple trees, and the green ones are pear trees. So we're going to want to harvest these for fruit, because we haven't got any food right now. So we harvest these fruits. The trees will regrow apples and pears, as long as you don't cut the trees down. That's unlimited supply of food. But it's relatively low grade food. It doesn't satisfy their hunger very much. So, once we've set up a few more commands, so next we'll need the masonry. So the carpentry builds wood-based items, and the masonry builds stone-based items. You probably would have guessed that, but just to double check. So next we'll till a little bit of land, and we can get set up with a wheat field. After that, we're going to need stone. So we'll get these guys ready to harvest out this stone. And yeah, okay. So we'll start the map with space. Space pauses and starts. So they go off to fulfill the commands that we've given them: harvesting wheat, collecting wood, harvesting the trees. This is where most of the wait time comes in. And it takes them quite a while to do all this. So while they're doing that, let's build the carpenter's bench, which is the first utility item you need. With this you can start building. As you can see here, we need the carpenter's bench for the ladder and the wood detailer. Without it, there's not much that we can build. Well, we could build an anvil, because that requires a smelter. No, sorry, we can build a stove, because that requires a smelter and anvil. And if we find them here, it needs a mason's bench, and the mason's bench needs a wood detailer, and the wood detailer needs a carpenter's bench. So yeah, that's probably the very first one that you're going to need. I probably should have turned the sound off. It can get quite noisy. If we just go down here, there, that's better. We'll just stay down here for a minute while there's no sound. So, you can get sieged by monsters. This doesn't happen at the start. When you start getting more people, you'll start getting sieged. It's just the group of monsters that will attack you. It's only a problem if you can't handle it, of course, but there's ways to easily counter it. Those ways will be getting your citizens, or your villagers, geared up with armour and weapons. We can go into how we do that later on. For now, it's just getting the very basics that we need, food and some materials, and then we can slowly expand. So there we go. Yeah, we can slowly expand the town. So we've got the carpenter's bench. We can now build a wood detailer and a ladder. And right, so for this tilled land here, we're going to want to plant some wheat, which is under here. Planting any crop-based plants or trees are based here. So the very first one is plant wheat. So we plant the wheat all across here. This will start growing as wheat. And with the wheat, we will need a mill to grind it into flour. So we'll get the mill ready now. And once we've got that, we're going to need a bakery so we can turn it into bread. And we'll put the bakery here. We probably can't build any bakery items, so yeah, we can. So we'll get that, and we'll be able to build the stones. No, we can't build the stove yet. Damn it. We need the masonry bench first. For that we need the wood detailer. So once the wood detailer is built, we will build this mason's bench. So there they go, they're collecting the wheat, they're going to turn it into seeds, like so, and then they're going to plant it in the area that I marked out. They've already started. These will grow, and then we can harvest those and continue planting until we've filled up the whole field. So now that they've started doing that, we're going to need to start gathering it. So we'll plonk that up to 6, so we've always got people gathering it. Right, and also we're going to need some item creation. Under utilities, we're going to need this stone hammer. I always forget to get the stone hammer, but we need that to build a mason's bench. As you can see there, stone hammer. So I get confused at why they're not building the mason's bench. And it's because we don't have a stone hammer. But I've got that out of the way early. So, well, they're already sleeping. So keeping the villagers alive is the first objective, and to do that you need food. When monsters attack, you need to make sure they're equipped with armour and with weapons to increase their survivability. We can see their statistics here. So Matilda has got 2008 HP. She has her attack and her defense and her damage. And this is her ungeared. Later on we will get some more gear for them. Weapons and armour, which will make them stronger. And probably going to need some more trees, so let's just chop these down. You can, as I was saying, you can kill these animals for a bit of meat, but it's raw meat, you have to cook it in a kitchen. You're better off starting with a wheat field, because all you need is the wheat, the mill, and then a bakery, and you get bread, which will easily satisfy their food at this early stage. So, there, they're going down the ladder, and they're starting to mine out this stone. And the stone's being left on the floor there. So we'll get a good amount of stone here to continue building and crafting. In order for new citizens to join your village, you need to provide the rooms for them, and you also need to keep the happiness of these villagers up. Getting killed, having no food will obviously decrease their happiness. And having a lot of food, having rooms, having a nice village will increase their happiness. Right, I think she's starting to make the masons. No, what's she doing? Oh yeah, alright, good. Right, we've got the wood detail. So now with that we can make masonry. Not masonry, mason's bench. Getting confused. And once that's built, we can build the baker's oven and start getting some bread. Right. Gathering and cooking and butchering and baking are all separate. So for bread, we're obviously going to be baking it. So up here we can see bread. So we'll bake 6 bread at a time. Like so. After this, instead of using stockpiles, barrels here are probably the best. So you can store 10 items in these barrels, as opposed to storing 10, like, oh, that's 12, that'll do. 3, 6, 9, 12, yeah. So this small space here will use up the same space as a barrel, which is just one single slot. So space-wise, it's better to use the barrels. They do require building though. So raw food goes there. Prepared food. There's different types of storage. We've got tool chests, which restore tools. Decoration for decoration. Raw food is food that hasn't been prepared into the next stage. For example, uncooked pork, because you can cook that into cooked pork, which is a prepared food, which is food that's been prepared, ready to eat, and will provide the maximum amount of satisfaction. Raw materials, logs, stone, etc. We've got a weapon and armour cabinet, which will store weapons and armour. That's my bad, I forgot to appear offline on Steam. Got interrupted. Anyway, let's continue. Right, the mill's finished. If we just quickly look at the mill, you can see here it needs 3 stone, 1 wood, and 1 cow. If there's no cows on the map, we're not going to be able to build a mill, which is the case on some maps. Snow would be an example. There's different environments for each map. There's mixed, which contains a portion of all of them. Snow, desert, mountains. When you start a game, you'll see them. They each contain their own type of monsters. A normal map will contain frogs, or frogmen, because they look like frogmen. Snow will contain yetis. Yetis are quite strong. I think the hardest one that you can play on is probably snow. Because the yetis are very powerful. There's very little resources in terms of food. Well, if you play a snow map, you'll see. Okay, we've got the mason's bench. And they're carrying the barrel. They're starting to make the barrels now as well. So, with the mason's bench, we can make an oven. Let's make 2 actually. Just to keep the rate that they can build high, because only one villager can use one utility at a time. So, they're all going off. Building, collecting, moving. We could use a bit more wheat. Let's see if we can find some more wheat. We've got plenty of apples and pears, so they're not going to starve. There's a bit of wheat here. Some wheat here. Oh yeah, there's a bit of a problem with issuing commands. If you click it and then do that, like so, it's gone in the corner here, which means you have to reselect it and keep doing that. If you hold shift, it will keep it there, like so. And then, yeah, you just hold shift when you're issuing commands so you don't have to keep going back to build new stuff. Like, I want to build a lot of barrels. I would have to keep going back to click it. Takes a long time. Well, I can just hold shift. That's a lot easier and a lot quicker. Like that. Oh yeah, and cancel order. Cancel order will cancel anything that you're doing in this area. So I've just cancelled all those barrels. So, is there any more wheat around? There's another one there. Let's just make sure we've got all this wheat. This is wild wheat. It's only for harvesting to get your wheat farm going. There's a lot down here, so that should hopefully be enough, and if it's too much we can use that wheat to start baking. Ah, there. So we're starting to get bread. So all's going well. It's especially difficult when you don't know what you're doing. I didn't know how to bake the bread. I had everything set up, but I didn't know that you had to order them from here to start baking bread, so I ended up losing my first game to starvation. I could not work out for the life of me how to do it. And because I didn't know about that, I had to do this with every single one, because I didn't know you could automatically set them to do it. But now that you know, hopefully you won't run into the same problem. So, how many villagers we've got? We've got 11, so let's... Oh, we're running low on apples and pears already. So let's bump that up to 8, to make sure that everyone will have bread to eat. Now, we can start expanding. So next, we could start getting some personal rooms, which is where they'll go to sleep, which is mainly just to increase their happiness, and to improve the satisfaction for sleep, because you can make them beds under furniture here. You can make them beds. So this will be the end of part 1. Bear with me.